There is a truth that is difficult to accept. Not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well. Not every congratulation stems from goodwill, and not every silence is harmless. In this life, those who inflict the deepest wounds rarely appear as enemies. They stand close to you, applauding your progress and speaking words just kind enough to disarm your suspicion. Yet, internally, they resent every of your growth. The reality is this: many do not hate you because you are failing. They hate you because you are becoming better. If you fail to see this, you will find yourself slowing your own pace just to keep them by your side. Envy and hypocrisy do not attack through open confrontation. They attack through silent erosion, making you doubt yourself, draining your energy and stealing your peace before you even realize it is gone. Stoicism does not teach you to harbor suspicion toward humanity, but to observe with sobriety. Do not react in haste. Do not argue over right and wrong. Simply watch in silence to see who truly stands with you and who is merely wearing a mask. In this video, we will explore 9 Stoic ways to identify envy and deceit in others. This is so you may maintain your equanimity, stand firm, and choose the right companions for your journey. If you seek the clarity to protect your inner sanctuary amidst a world of masks, stay until the end, and subscribe to Stoic Journey to continue fortifying yourself in a world that is not always sincere. 1. Observe actions. Disregard words. One of the core principles of Stoic philosophy is simple yet often neglected. Do not trust words. Observe actions. Words can be curated, shaped, and worn as a mask. Anyone can say the right thing, especially when they have something to gain from you. But actions are incapable of lying. They reveal the truth that people attempt to hide behind praise, concern, or beautiful promises. Those who envy you most rarely oppose you openly. Often they appear in the form of supporters. They compliment you to your face and act friendly when you ascend. But when you truly require their presence, their help, or their solidarity during a critical hour, they vanish. It is not that they are busy, it is that they were never truly there. They do not sabotage you through conflict, but through their calculated absence when you need them most. Stoicism does not advise you to be angry or to unmask such people. It teaches you to observe in silence. Watch who keeps their word when there is no profit. Watch who appears when there is nothing to gain. Watch who stays only when the tides are favorable. Clarity is found there. When you judge people by their deeds rather than their rhetoric, you are no longer led by fleeting emotions. You see more clearly, you select more wisely, and you protect your inner peace from relationships that only exist on the surface. 2. Observe their reaction to your success. Few things reveal the human soul more clearly than a person's reaction to your success. When you begin to ascend, when your labor is recognized and you onto a higher plane, the masks so carefully worn begin to slip. Envy rarely manifests as an open assault. It reveals itself in lukewarm congratulations, averted gazes, and silences that linger longer than usual. These signs are subtle, yet they are more than enough for the sober mind to realize that something is no longer right. A sincere soul rejoices with you naturally. Your success does not make them shrink, nor does it threaten them or compel them to prove their own worth. They understand that each path is unique, and your progress does not diminish their value. But to the envious, your success is a painful mirror. It reflects the things they refuse to face in themselves, their procrastination, their half-hearted choices, or their shallow efforts. Stoicism teaches that in such moments, you require no confrontation, no explanation, and no justification. You observe. You take note. And you adjust your distance, not with coldness or resentment, but with discernment. When a person cannot find joy in your growth, they have effectively placed themselves outside your inner circle, regardless of how physically close they remain. The forced silence, the backhanded compliments, or their gradual disappearance as you rise are all clear signals. Stoicism does not demand that you sever ties instantly, but it commands that you stop pouring energy into those who cannot endure your light. Success is more than a milestone. It is a test. It measures not only your effort but exposes who truly stands by you and who only remained because you hadn't outpaced them yet. When you read these reactions with equanimity, you will no longer be hurt. One who cannot tolerate your success was never with you. They only tolerated you as long as you remained beneath them. 3. How they treat those who offer them nothing. One of the most profound tests of character lies not in how a person speaks of virtue, but in how they treat those who can offer them absolutely nothing in return. A person of noble character does not calibrate their respect according to power, status, or the observation of others. For them, kindness is not a strategy. It is their nature. They remain consistent, whether standing before the powerful or addressing the completely anonymous. Conversely, the hypocrite is a master of the mask. They know the right words to say and when to display kindness when eyes are upon them. But when there is no longer an audience to impress, the true face emerges. Contempt appears in their gaze, their tone, and their treatment of the vulnerable, those who lack the means to reciprocate or provide benefit. Such people do not respect humanity. They only respect power and utility. Stoic philosophy teaches that it is in these seemingly trivial moments that a person's true nature is most vividly exposed. It is not found in grand speeches on morality, but in the way they speak to a waiter, their reaction to the voiceless, and their conduct when there is nothing to be gained. A distorted soul can hide for a long time, but it always leaves traces in the places it deems unimportant. To a Stoic, this is not a reason for judgment, but for vigilant selection. For the one who cannot treat the weak with kindness will inevitably turn their back on you the moment you lose utility in their eyes. When you learn to see this early, you do not lose faith in humanity. You simply reserve your respect for the worthy and protect your own peace. 4. Distinguish between praise and flattery. Excessive flattery is a silent peril, for it rarely presents itself as an obvious lie. It arrives in the most pleasing form, words that make you feel recognized, elevated, and placed upon a pedestal. Sincere praise is constructive. It is anchored in action and true presence. Flattery, conversely, serves a private agenda. It speaks volumes but performs nothing. It tells you exactly what you wish to hear, yet it never stands by your side when the tide turns. When someone continuously exalts you with words but remains absent in deeds, be vigilant. Flattery is not intended to lift you up but to lower your guard. It constructs a facade of intimacy in exchange for influence, trust, or gain. A Stoic does not tether their self-worth to the echoes of applause, no matter how sweet they may sound. They look for consistency, for repeated patterns of behavior, and for who truly appears when there is no profit to be reaped. Your value does not reside in what others say of you, but in the integrity you maintain when no one is watching. Once you no longer require external validation to confirm your worth, all flattery loses its dominion over you. 5. Consistency over time. Inconsistency is rarely accidental. It is not merely a slip of the tongue or a momentary lapse. Most often, it is the signature of an internal life governed by self-interest. The hypocrite does not live by values. They live by circumstances. They calibrate their attitude based on your utility to them. When the winds are favorable, they are present. When the situation shifts, they retreat as naturally as if no bond had ever existed. Stoic philosophy does not advise hasty judgment, but it commands observation over duration. Do not look at a beautiful promise. Look at how a person acts repeatedly over time. Observe them not when things are easy, but when they must choose between their values and their interests. A person of principle maintains a steady disposition regardless of changing fortunes. The dishonest do not. They may speak of loyalty, but their actions are loyal only to what benefits them most. Pay attention to patterns. Who appears only when praise is due, but vanishes when responsibility calls? Who acts devoted while you hold a position of advantage, but grows cold when your utility fades? These details are not coincidences. They are clues. To a Stoic, consistency is the silent yardstick of character. When you learn to read patterns instead of clinging to isolated moments, you will no longer be deceived by fleeting appearances. You do not become more suspicious. You simply become more discerning in choosing who is worthy of walking the long path at your side. 6. How they confront criticism. A Stoic does not view criticism as an assault, but as an opportunity to examine the soul. When corrected, they listen before they react, not out of weakness, but because they prize truth above ego. To them, having a flaw pointed out does not diminish their worth. It brings them closer to excellence. Criticism, when born of goodwill, is a difficult but necessary gift. Conversely, the envious or the hypocrite reacts quite differently. When faced with feedback, their first reflex is not reflection, but defense. They seek to dismiss, to blame, or to launch a counterattack against the one who pointed out the flaw. This is not because the criticism is false, but because it strikes the fragile ego they labor to protect. Instead of seeking the truth, they seek to preserve their image, even if that image is built upon denial. Stoic philosophy teaches that a person's behavior under pressure always reveals their true nature. One who can remain calm before criticism possesses a firm foundation. One who flares up, withdraws, or retaliates is one who fears being truly seen. That fear, if left unchecked, leads to deceit, manipulation, and relationships that cannot endure. To a Stoic, this is not a reason for judgment, but a signal for selection. For the one who dares not face the truth about themselves will never possess the honesty required to stand beside you for long. When you realize this, you do not lose compassion. You simply reserve your respect for those brave enough to live in truth. 7. The subconscious comparisons. Seemingly harmless comparisons often mask a deep-seated insecurity. They do not appear as overt attacks. They slip through ordinary conversations, often wearing the guise of concern. When someone constantly compares you to others, they are rarely speaking about you. They are speaking about themselves, their sense of inferiority, their fear of being left behind, and a fragile ego seeking a shield. These comparisons typically emerge precisely when you have taken a forward. Instead of acknowledging your effort, they shift the narrative to someone else, placing you against an unnecessary yardstick, as if your growth requires verification to have value. This is not intended to make you better. It is intended to diminish your progress so they do not have to confront their own stagnation. Stoic philosophy reminds us that such comparisons are externals, things outside our control. You cannot govern how others perceive your success, but you can govern how much weight you allow those remarks to carry. A Stoic does not enter this subtle game of measurement. They do not justify, they do not refute, and they feel no need to prove anything. They continue on their path, steadfast and silent. The person who constantly needs to compare others to feel secure is a person not yet strong enough to stand alone. When you realize this, their comparisons no longer shake you. They only clarify who truly wishes for your ascent and who merely wishes you to slow down so they do not feel left behind. 8. How they respond to failure. Failure does not create character. It merely reveals the character that was already there. When things collapse and results defy expectations, the shroud people use to hide themselves can no longer hold. A strong soul looks failure in the eye. They accept responsibility, not for self-reproach, but for learning. To them, failure is a costly but necessary lesson, for it reveals what must be adjusted and what requires further discipline. Conversely, the hypocrite or those lacking inner strength react quite differently. They cannot endure the sensation of being wrong. Instead of facing it, they search for external culprits to blame: unfavorable circumstances, inadequate companions, or an unlucky timing. Anything serves as a pretext. When necessary, they will rewrite the narrative, casting themselves as victims of fate or as the misunderstood. Their goal is not to find the truth, but to shield the ego from the sting of defeat. Stoicism teaches that a person's response when things fall outside their control speaks louder than any declaration of virtue. One who maintains equanimity in failure possesses a firm foundation. One who rushes to blame is one who fears looking directly into their own soul. To a Stoic, this is a signal for recognition. The person who lacks the courage to own their failure will never possess the honesty to walk beside you through a long and arduous journey. 9. How they share information. The way a person shares information says a great deal about their internal state. A sincere person speaks with humility. They feel no need to exaggerate achievements, claim undue credit, or impress others with embellished stories. When they speak of success, they focus on the process. When they speak of failure, they neither evade nor blame. For them, the truth is sufficient. It requires no noise. In contrast, the hypocrite often betrays their instability through their words. They magnify their gains, emphasize favorable details, and skip over the unsightly parts. More notably, they frequently share negative information about those around them, gossiping, distorting stories, or sowing seeds of doubt under the guise of just letting you know. These words do not stem from concern, but from a need to diminish others to elevate their own standing. Stoic philosophy reminds us to listen not just to the content, but to the motive behind the speech. Words are mirrors of the internal state. One who cannot maintain uprightness in how they speak of others will not maintain honesty when they speak of you. When you realize this, you will know whom to hear and whom to keep at a distance, in silence and self-respect. Conclusion. Freedom amidst the masks. If you have journeyed this far, perhaps you see one truth more clearly. Envy and deceit are not always loud, and those who inflict the deepest wounds rarely appear as enemies. Stoicism does not teach you to be suspicious of all, but to live with sobriety, to be selective, and to hold your inner ground amidst a world of masks. When you view people with discernment rather than fleeting emotion, you do not become cold, you become free. Stoic Journey was created for those who refuse to live in doubt, yet will not accept blindness. If this video helped you clarify a relationship, understand a person, or simply understand yourself, please like to support the channel. Subscribe to Stoic Journey to walk with us in further lessons, those that help you stand firm, stay calm, and remain unmoved by the emotions of others. Before you go, leave a comment for yourself, a silent covenant that from today you choose clarity over credulity, equanimity over reaction, and relationships that nourish you over those that drain you. Not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Many leave simply because they can no longer endure the fact that you are no longer as small as you once were. Stoic Journey will be here, continuing to accompany you on the path of building an unshakable interior, in silence and in dignity.